First year of high school, let's go, baby. So, we call it year 8, I was age 12, and yeah, it was the first year of high school, and not too much eventful happened, and it was the right year to just fuck around and be a kid with no pressures or responsibilities or anything like that. So yeah, I did that, I had a fun year, and as far as grades go, I didn't study, but I got average grades, just what I needed to get by. So, pretty much the year was great as it was supposed to be, just being a kid. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys, right? I wasn't too good socially, and I was a bit of an idiot at that age, and some kids made fun of me, but nothing too vicious, and most of the time I just laughed it off anyway. And yeah, I didn't really let it affect me. It was still a good, fun year. I still look back on it fondly. There was one important academic thing to mention though. So at the beginning of the year, we had a big maths test that would determine which class we're put into, where each class is determined by ability, i.e. the score you got in the test, to determine which class you're put in, right? So I got put in the second highest class without really studying for the test. But at the end of the year, I got the third highest score in my class, but the kids who moved up were the ones that got the first highest, second highest, and fourth, because my teacher straight up told me to my face, you got a really good score, but you mess around too much in class, so I can't move you up. I can't lie, as an adult, I do actually respect that he did that. Being a smart slacker is not like being a smooth criminal. So, end of year came, it was my birthday, and for my birthday that year, I actually got a little parrot, a cockatiel. I wanted a dog originally, but it was off the table for various reasons, namely that my mom had allergies to fur and stuff like that, but luckily not feathers, and in the end, it didn't matter, because damn, that little guy was all you could need. So my 13th birthday party that year was a riot. It was such a good time. We had Silver, which is what we named the parrot, and I also got Super Smash Bros. Brawl. And like us 13-year-olds playing a game like that, we had a wild time. The other funny memory was that one of my friends was going through my Mii's on the Nintendo Wii, right? And my brother just decides to go, that one has a nose that looks like a dick. And my friend just turns to me and goes, Vinay, what have you been teaching this guy, man? So now we move on to year 9, which was a very important year for me academically, where the events in that year and the effects of the things achieved really changed the course of my life and have set the foundations for everything that I've achieved and I'm going to achieve. So similarly to last year, we got put in science classes based on some test results at the beginning of the year. I didn't really take the test seriously and I got an average score, so what happened is that I was put in the middle class, one class rank below my friends who were put in the second highest class. Not only that, but the girl I liked was also in that class above me with all my friends. So yeah, I felt the need to do what I can to get into that class, man. It's crazy to think about now. Like, I'm 28 and I'm a chemical engineering PhD student, but there was a time where I was only in the average or middle science class. How about that? Things can change, man. So the very first class test in that new class, the first test, I got an 80%, which was good, but then I got complacent and I just missed the 70 on the next test. So no moving up to my friends and the cute girl for me. I was so pissed off with myself, man. And this all happened just before the Christmas holidays, but my teacher explained to me that in the next year, in January, there would be a big science test on every topic covered so far, and that would be my chance to move up. Let me tell you, something awakened in me that Christmas, like the Force Awakens. And you may remember me telling you in the previous episode, right? Where my science teacher got pissed off at me in middle school for having a messy book, but praised me for rebounding from it and rectifying my mistake. I definitely think on a subconscious level that influenced my drive and my fight over flight reflex, even though at the time it didn't really cross my mind. I'm sure it was subconscious or something like that. So Christmas holidays came and I was studying like a kid possessed, man. My mum actually bought me a PlayStation 3 for Christmas, and I actually thought to myself, or even told her, Mom, you're doing too much now. I don't deserve this. But man, it was a good, fun memory, all the games we played on the PS3, and that really motivated me to study more. And that's actually set one of my work ethics that I have even to this day, right? Have some fun, be indulgent when you need to, and use that as motivation to do even better the next time. And that's served me well. It is kind of funny, right? The previous year, I was a kid without a care, just rolling with my buddies. But when I was separated from my buddies, I became a polar opposite kid. For me as an adult and as a kid back then, I've always had a lot of power, gained a lot of power from the people I'm with. I'm a pretty extroverted guy, so yeah, my energy comes from my friends and family and the people that I care about. Jesus Christ, I sound like an anime protagonist or something. Hey, it ain't the worst though, is it? Better than being a narcissist, am I right? That whole change in me was like when a Pokemon evolved, man, like it was it was a monumental, fundamental change in my life, as you should have at that age, you know? When you're a teenager, you should be having those revelations that form who you're going to be as an adult, organically, might I add. Speaking of evolving, right? I felt the need to really grow taller because the girl I liked was pretty tall. At the time, she was taller than me. So I started drinking loads of milk and doing loads of cardio. And did it work? Oh yeah, it did. Like, I remember at that age crossing my dad in height. My dad was 5'9" at the time. So being 5'9" as a 13-year-old is pretty decent, you know? And yes, it did work. Come to think of it, right? I didn't grow much from that age up until 18, because when I was 18, I was about 5'11", but I definitely grew past 18. I don't know my true height right now, because I've had posture problems, which I'm working on through, but at the moment I am 184 cm or 6 feet and half an inch, and I've still got posture problems, and they're not completely gone. So, yeah, I wonder how tall I am, man. But sorry, one thing I really need to say, I want to address this to the guys, to the fellas, right? Let me tell you this. So, I've had work on my posture, like last year, where it broke me from 5'11" to 6 foot based on the postural corrections, because I went to an osteopath who adjusts the joints and stuff like that. And guys, let me tell you, it did not really make any difference to how interested women were with me. Like, I've always been decent with women, but going from 5'11" to 6 foot did not really change that. It didn't skyrocket how much attention I got from anything, you know? Personality does play a long factor with girls that matter. The girls that just only look at superficial things like height, you're not missing out on anything. And that applies completely in reverse. So to you ladies, you know, the guys who only look at you for how you look or anything like that, and only look at that and not look at what's inside you, you're not missing out on anything, man. Forget about them. Quality of people over quantity of people. Speaking of girls, right, that girl that I was talking about, I actually did ask her out on the Friday before school had a school break, in which Valentine's Day was. And yeah, I did it in the corniest way possible. I bought her a card which says "Love Rocks," where the letters LOVEROCKS were each on an actual rock, and I wrote her that, like, you know, little love letter inside there, and I gave it to her. And yeah, obviously she said no, but you know, she said it really nicely, so credit to her, because like at that age that could have went really down south. But funny memory, man. There had to be a first time for everything. I skipped a little bit ahead there, because as I said, that was just before Valentine's Day. So rewinding back a little bit to the January in which that big science class test happened. So I did the test and I actually got a good score. I beat 2 of the 3 people who were moving up. I didn't move up maybe because the administration was set in stone or whatever, but man, I didn't even care. I actually realized, hey, when I put my mind to things, when I put my mind to academics, I'm actually kind of good. That is a very monumental realization that everybody needs to have in their life, ideally at a younger age, in which if they put the effort and conscientiousness into something, that it will actually get them results. That was my breakthrough moment for me. Well, the first breakthrough moment for me, might I add. Rewinding a little bit to October of that year. So my mom hired a maths tutor to trial, right? And then the first trial, we wanted to see where my ability was at. Like, I just got nervous and I could barely answer anything. And he was actually like, okay, use the logic you used in the previous question here. And I literally had to tell him, I didn't use logic, man. I just did what school taught me. So yeah, that maths teacher was really understanding and patient, and after a few sessions with him, he really brought out the ability in me. And yeah, that year my maths revolutionized along with the science. Although not immediately, because halfway through the year we had some maths class tests that would determine whether we moved up or down in classes. And maybe partially because I got a little bit, not complacent, but relaxed from the science test, and most of my friends and the girl were in my maths class. Like, the score I got was good, but it just missed the mark to move up. Like, I wanted what was called a level 8, and I got a mid or high 7. So I knew at that point that it was time to put the same oomph that I put into science into maths. So end of year tests came for both, and boom, I put the effort in, I put the conscientiousness in, I put the oomph in, and I got the highest possible grades in maths and science that I could. Like, it was crazy, let me tell you this. I actually remember the very moment in class where I got my papers back. And some kid asked me, yo, Vinay, what'd you get? And I told him 167 out of 200. And the girl I liked turned around and just looked at me like, At the time, the threshold for the highest level possible, a level 8, was 70%, and the score I got was 83.5, so I cleanly got the highest mark I needed. And on the note of science, right, I also got a really high score, and in doing so, I beat the entire class above me, and most of the people in the class above that, the top set, because bear in mind, I was in the average class at the same time, but I need to reiterate this, right? Something I forgot to mention. The average, second highest, and highest class all got the same test, so I didn't get the beginner's test, right? The test I did was available. There's the highest test available where I could get the highest mark possible. It was crazy, right? I started getting clout from the whole year group, and as a kid, that's an amazing feeling, because I'm not gonna lie, like I mentioned before, I was a little bit of an idiot, and I wasn't the most popular kid, because I would keep acting a fool. And for that to happen, for people to notice somebody rock up and accelerate like that and just be in awe, yeah, man, it's a hell of a memory. That year, 2009, was definitely in the top 2 favorite years of my life. I still haven't decided if it's the top year or second best, but man, that year was treasured, man. As if all that wasn't good enough. Me and my family went to the USA on holiday for summer that year, where we went to San Francisco, Las Vegas, and San Diego in that order. And I just realized now, when writing the script for this video, that we basically visited the locations in GTA San Andreas in real life. Okay, I know we visited San Diego instead of Los Angeles, but close enough, man. What a damn holiday, like, whew. Let me share a quick memory with you, right? Not from the holiday, but whenever there was a school holiday, on the last day of school afterwards, me and the boys would always go to Nando's, which for those of you that don't know who aren't from the UK, is a South African chicken restaurant, a chicken grill, not like some fried chicken shop, like a proper restaurant. And yeah, every time we had some memories there, man. The outrageous jokes we would make, the scrumptious, yummy chicken, the bottomless drinks that my friend would always steal by asking for tap water and then getting as many drinks as he wanted, and the frozen yogurt and the banter and playing basketball or whatever we did afterwards. Whew. My face says it all, huh? It was also interesting that in that year, I basically watched the finale of Avatar: The Last Airbender. I don't know why I was so late, because I just remember that there was a big gap, and like they showed some episodes in the UK, then they just disappeared and I had to go online and etc. But yeah, I really started to get into my spirituality and I started meditating then, and yeah, everything just came together in the most beautiful way that year. Back on the note of the holiday now, right? I was 14, just turned 14 at the time, and my brother was about 8, I think. And we were in Las Vegas, and we were all just listening to some American news in the hotel, and the news anchor said something about a porn star, whatever happened to them. And my little brother just goes, "Mom, what's a porn star?" And my mom just goes, "A bad person." So now we're moving on to the next school year, where we start training for our actual exams in about a couple years' time. In the UK, we call them GCSEs, and we do them for every subject. I should mention that because of my high math score, I was put in the highest class, where we basically did that exam 1 year early, and yeah, I got the A star in maths, the highest grade. That was no trouble at all. Although I do remember having a practice test at the beginning of the year and halfway through the year. Both of them I got A's, so obviously in the one halfway through the year I felt, damn, I haven't improved, but obviously I did by the end. And I just wanted to reiterate, right, that, you know, we all have this, there's that perception that there's some students that just get top grades with minimal effort. I'm not sure they exist because I haven't really seen any myself, because I don't think anybody does things with no effort. But even if they do exist or whatever they are supposed to be in real life, I was not that student. I got good grades with effort, and I think that served me well, as I mentioned in the previous video. But you know, if those students do exist where they just get top grades with minimal effort, let me ask you this. Where are they and what are they doing for the planet right now? Like, with all due respect to them if they're real, but I think it's a valid question, you know? Global warming ain't cooling its ass down itself, is it? Speaking of saving the planet, right, I was that annoying kid who would always turn the lights off to save energy, whether it was convenient or not. I do remember one funny time where I thought there was nobody in a classroom, so I just opened the door and switched the lights off, and the teacher was actually inside, and she was literally like, "Are you for real right now?" But I want to mention something heartfelt, right? From being that guy as a 14-year-old to a chemical engineering PhD student who's actually doing something big in biotech for his PhD. Like, you know, a lot of people have dreams as a kid that, you know, shift over the years, and they settle into something quite different as an adult. I just want to say my life might not have been easy, but I have to be thankful for the fact that what I wanted to do as a kid, what I dreamed about and envisioned for my life is actually what I'm doing now. It didn't come easy, but I stuck to it and I actually got it, you know? I should be counting my blessings, huh? In 2010 summer, I was lucky enough to go with my family to Malaysia. And part of that holiday was on the Bornean part of Malaysia. Specifically, I think it was called Sabah. And it was so cool, man. I actually got my first real glimpse of wildlife outside of a zoo. And on the way back, on the car journey back from the forest, I conversed with some American adventurers, and they were telling me how great it was that I was doing what I was doing and pursuing the path I was doing as a kid. And it was really nice to have my dreams and my ambitions affirmed. You know, especially because you see Americans on TV and we look up to them because they're the ones that produce all the action. So it felt good, man. So speaking of the wildlife, we saw proboscis monkeys, and at night we were treated to the visual spectacle of a waterfront of a lake just bedazzled by orange glowing crocodile eyes on the waterfront surface at nighttime. And let me tell you, like, there's nothing like it. Like, you can watch all the National Geographic or Animal Planet you want, but nothing prepares you for seeing it in real life. I can't stress that enough. Two funny things, like we bought a travel guide for Malaysia from W.H. Smith, the bookstore in the United Kingdom. And in it, it said that in Mount Kinabalu, in the forest leading up to it, there are wild orangutans. And when we brought that up to the concierge when we were arranging a tour, she was literally like, who the hell told you that? Like, we straight got lied to, man. And one other funny memory, we were having dinner, and some lady in the hotel restaurant legit laughed like SpongeBob, and all four of us could not hold our laughter back. As an adult, I really want to go back to Malaysia, particularly the Danum Valley, where you actually get wild orangutans, and as an adult, I could do more adventurous stuff, you know? I even have my scuba diving license now. The subject that took the most effort was actually English, as at that time, it was not my forte, and it did not come natural, and it took effort to get good at, like, for sure. I do think, looking back, that the English language as a subject is not only based on studying, like one's ability in it, but it's also based on like social skills and maturity, which obviously as teenagers can heavily vary with age, like specific age if they're the older or the younger in the year group. And yeah, I think that's an important thing to mention, because obviously when you're reading stories and you're analyzing characters for their content of their character, that is heavily linked to social skills that apply to real life, and for many teenagers might come later in life. Some earlier, some later. For me, for various reasons, later. I need to emphasize something, right? Even though I keep mentioning that my social skills weren't great, like, it didn't stop me from having a lot of friends and being liked by a lot of people, because the content of my character really shone through. I was just socially clumsy, but I was still nice and I was pleasant and I had a personality that people liked. I wasn't a prick or anything like that, you know? I wasn't a bully or some dickhead, you know? So, back on the note of English, right? So my first and maybe my second coursework only came back as C. And I remember in 2 practice exams we had, like, at different points through the 2-year study period, I got B's in both, so obviously there was that sense of not improving when it came to the second test. It wasn't so bad because I was predicted 2 B's, and I was already at B's at that level, so it wasn't so bad, but obviously, you know, I wanted more. I wanted to get A's or even A stars. Close to the final exam in 2011, I remember my English tutor like roasting my work, calling it sloppy and shoddy, and she was just like, no, and like that ranked on the pressure to me. But as my mentality is with everything, it's that it's not over till the fat lady sings. And I mean that proverbially. I was not speaking about her. She wasn't even fat. So the real exam came, and my creative juices weren't flowing for the part of the exam where we had to write a creative story. Like, normally I would write about some crazy shit like lunar goddesses looking over oil spills and some mad shit like that, right? Well, the juices weren't flowing, and I wrote some rubbish about some dorky kid whose hair looked goofy when he went to a restaurant and the girl he liked was there. But as stupid and lame and corny and boring as that sounds, I stuck to the structure, and when my English marks came back, I actually got 2 A's, because we have 2 English subjects, English language and English literature. So basically we had 2 English subjects, and I somehow got A's in both. I was expecting B's, like yeah, once again, like the grind paid off. It's crazy that I'm a PhD student now because I gotta tell you, right? Even though my science exams were good, my first few courseworks did not come back so good. The first one was in biology, where we had to answer a scientific debate question of our choice to exercise scientific argument and objective reasoning and things like that. And we had the opportunity to pick our own subjects, but the teacher stressed to us that it had to be two-sided. And my stupid, immature tree hugger ass wanted to answer a question about whether ecological collapse and ecological degradation is important, which is a terrible question because no shit it's important. It's very one-sided. Like, it's completely one-sided actually, but my stupid tree hugger ass persisted even though my teacher really said that maybe you shouldn't do that one. So I do the coursework and it comes back a C. At first, my immature ass complained about it. I complained about it to another teacher, but luckily, even though that teacher told my teacher, the teacher was not pissed off. She understood, I'm 14, I'm not an adult. 14-year-olds are gonna do stupid shit. And she said, okay, you know what? You didn't do well in this one, but I'm gonna give you a second chance to do it from scratch. And this time, pick a better debate question. So I took it on board. Like, I didn't get defensive. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it well this time. Remember what I said from the previous episodes about rebounding back from when things don't go right the first time, right? So basically, I pick a question on whether obesity is caused by genetics or environment, or specifically to what extent is it genetics versus environment, and boom, like I took the feedback on board and I got an A star, 90%, because I put the effort into rebound again. That really did teach me the importance of keeping my passion in check and being objective with my reasoning. And yeah, not letting my passion run through and run amok. That's something that's going to be very important for my PhD, given that I'm so passionate about what I'm doing. But yeah, the skills are set in stone, so it's all good. My very first experimental coursework was also not great when it first came back. Two after that were better because obviously I learned what to do. But the first one was in physics, and yeah, it also came back a C because I hyper-focused on some criteria. And I'll give you a little spoiler alert. I'm neurodiverse, but I didn't know it at the time. And yeah, there was a misinterpretation of what I was supposed to do. So it came back a C. I went to the teacher, and whilst he said, unfortunately, whilst you can't repeat the experiment, what you can do is rewrite the discussion. So I rewrote it and moved that low C, might I add, a low C, up to a high B. And the teacher told me, I gave you the chance because you wanted to put the work in. You didn't want to just complain about it. I also want to take this quick moment to say something that's close to my heart, right? Like, in academics, the top students are the ones that are looked at that get it the very first time, right? I don't think that's a good way at looking at things because, like, some people who don't get it right the very first time, it's because they have their own thought processes and they process the instructions their own way. And obviously they're not going to get it 100% right the first time. But that's as opposed to some students, no disrespect to them, that just kind of do what they're told without maybe fully thinking about it or knowing exactly what they're doing. No disrespect to them. So I want to re-emphasize that it's important that somebody who doesn't get something right the first time, it doesn't mean that they're bad at that thing. And I think second chances should be looked at importantly. Sorry, I know it sounds like I really bash those students who get it and get the grade the first time, but at the end of the day, there is competition to it, and we're always compared to them. So, us who have our own thought processes and don't immediately get every single thing are looked at lesser than them, and unfairly so. I didn't mean to bash them, but yeah, it's sticky like that. It is sticky. I gotta tell you though, that I never look back at my life and wish I was one of those type students. I'm happy with my own learning process. It's got me far enough. I definitely got the grades. It didn't hold me back from getting the grades, and everything I've learned from schoolhood up until now, and all the lessons I've learned, not just in academics, but, has served me well. I am happy. I do not feel the need to be anybody else or have been anybody else or achieved anything different than I have. I'm set. I'm good. I'm golden. It's worth mentioning that around the time of the first physics coursework, I was in a bit of a bad place. So you may remember me mentioning that best friend who turned out to be a bad influence and how I can be wrapped around his finger and he'll condone everything I did, right? So friends like him, they have a way, either consciously or subconsciously, probably a mixture of both, of making someone emotionally dependent on them. And then when they are done with that person, don't need them, they cut them off. Obviously, that's when problems start, because emotional dependency is formed, and obviously that person who made the person emotionally dependent on them has no sympathy towards it, right? So basically, there is a psychological term for it called love bombing, but obviously in this case it was more friendship bombing, which is definitely a thing. So basically, he got a girlfriend, right? And when he did, he just started acting funny with me. And then when the girl broke up with him, he came back, and it wasn't long before he started acting funny again. Given that my dad didn't teach me the social skills and like my upbringing at home with like my dad's alcohol issues, yeah, like it was not the best. My confidence was pretty low at that point, and it's crazy because like a year before, I felt on top of the world. And at this point, I had social anxiety and I was feeling pretty down in the dumps. Adding to that, right, Sweet 16 birthday parties were starting to happen. And the first big one where most people in my circle were invited to, I wasn't invited, right? So, that stung a little bit. Although luckily, throughout the year, I got invited to an average number of parties, a decent number, and they were good. And the next big one where all my circle were in on it, I got invited, which is funny because the summer earlier, I actually had an argument with that girl. So maybe the universe was throwing me a bone. To that girl, I just wanted to say thank you for inviting me, even though I was a bit of an idiot. Back on the note of physics, right? So my final score was a high A, if I remember correctly, around 87%, which was a good rebound considering my first physics exam was a high A. My second was a low A, then that coursework came back as C, so obviously things kept dropping, but I got 100% in the last exam, so it really rounded it up. Once again, the power of rebounding, man. When you get knocked down, when you fall down in life, you get back up, don't say no, don't take no for an answer, get your ass back in that fight and you will be rewarded. It does make me realize something, right? In academics, it's the grade and the threshold that's looked at. Often when people are assessing you for college applications or anything like that, right? In the UK, the highest grade is called an A star, and it's when you get 90% in something, right? Somebody who got an 87 like me, or maybe an 88 or an 89, would not be looked at as highly as someone who got an A star, who just got the A star at 90%, even though the scores were really not that different. I really do think that in the future it would be good if academic grades were looked at as a continuous percentage instead of cut-off grades, as we call discrete. So now we get on to my overall scores, where in GCSEs we do literally all the subjects, right? So basically my predicted score was a 6.9. How the hell do you get numbers? Let me explain to you. So basically a B is a 6, an A is a 7, and an A star, the highest grade, is an 8. And obviously a C is a 5, but I didn't really get any C's. And the average is based on the grades you get, turned to numbers, right? So I was basically predicted a 6.9, which is basically all A's except for one B. But the actual grade I got was a 7.3, which is 3 A stars and the rest A's. So obviously I exceeded my predictions. There was one prediction I just fell short of. I was predicted an A star in geography and I just missed it, but that is life, man. Like I said, I was over the moon that I got A's in English. Both A's in English, might I add. So yeah, stuff was good, man. I was really over the moon. I was really pleased with my grades. I actually remember, right, applying for a grammar school for the next stage of education between 16 and 18, which I'll get onto in a moment. But my grades with predicted weren't high enough because this was a pretty prestigious, high up type school. But with the grades I got, I actually received an offer. I didn't end up going because it wasn't really the place I wanted anyway. But yeah, man, the fruits of my labor were reaped. So here's what's really heartwarming, right? So I get a Sweet 16 surprise birthday party from my friends and even from some people who I thought didn't really like me. And it was just such a treasured memory. But here's the crazy part, right? One of the girls I was friends with who helped organize had her Sweet 16 birthday about a week or two before, which I was invited to. And it turns out that people were organizing my birthday, including her, around the same time. So they really made that special for me. How heartwarming is that? I'll never forget that. And if any of you are watching right now, I would love to reconnect with you. I still remember that. God bless you all. On the note of that best friend, he was not at the birthday party because he was out of the country at the time. And it is a recurring theme, or it was a recurring theme, that most of my important social moments that grew my social skills and my self-confidence, most if not all, happened to be when he wasn't there. Some of you may be thinking I shouldn't be blaming him that hard because he was a kid, but the thing is, right, he got worse as an adult and he knew what he was doing because he bragged about being a narcissist. He knew what it meant. So trust me when I say, there is very much weight to what I'm saying in the criticisms I'm laying and the effect it had on my life. So believe me, or at least take my word for that. On a very quick note of extracurriculars, I actually decided to play bass and learn bass at the end of the first year, year 10, and 1 year later, at the end of year 11, like the last year of school, I was actually good enough to play in the school band for the final year performances, the R&B band, so we played the good music. Yeah, once again, like, putting the work into grinds, it does pay off if you have the patience and you have the conscientiousness and you have the drive, man. So for the next episode, it's on something we call sixth form in the UK, which is the period of education between 16 and 18. So before you go on to university, where you specialize in the subjects that are relevant to what you want to do at university. I know it's a bit of a different concept to somewhere in USA where you go straight from high school to university, but yeah, that's what we'll be talking about next time. And until then, thank you very much for listening. Have a wonderful day and peace out.